Okay, students are still joining. How many students do we have till now?
20, sir.
Yeah, right. Let's wait for 2 more minutes and then I'll mark you guys present. So, social engineering is all about psychologically manipulating someone, hmm, building a trust relationship with someone, and then exploiting that trust, hmm, right? Do you guys have anything more to add on this thing? Anything else that you guys would like to add? Nothing. So let's talk about specific types of social engineering attacks, like starting from phishing, farming, wishing. Then we have got spear phishing. Then we have got whaling. Right. So what is phishing? Hmm? What is phishing?
So it's creating a malicious link and inserting it in the form um, of a safe, secure link, which creates curiosity among the users and they click on it. Basically, they are clickbaits.
Okay, that is clickbait basically. Okay, what you have just explained me, that is clickbait.
Phishing is something we create a clone site of a site like Facebook or something, and we send it to a user or victim, which
Mhm.
they enter their credentials and try to log in, and we get the details of the victim.
Okay.
So doing malicious thing with an authenticate cover means like an in the cover of an authentication.
Okay, doing something malicious with an authenticated server. That's what
No,
you
authenticate cover means like a
authenticate.
cover up of an authenticity.
Okay. Sending a message and links to get sensitive data from users, send it as a mass mail, posing as a trusted entity. All right. So basically, phishing is all about sending fake emails, okay? And farming is all about creating fake web pages, okay? So a lot of people gets confused in this thing, okay? As some of you guys also mentioned in phishing, like creating fake web pages of like facebook.com or stuff like that. Okay, so that is essentially farming. So when you try to impersonate somebody else, okay, you when you try to create a harmless looking page or a harmless looking email that is being received from a trusted entity, okay, but actually it is not being received from a trusted entity. Actually that web page is not trusted. Okay, it's a fake web page, it's a fake email. That is considered as phishing or farming. Okay, and what is the motive behind that? So the motive is basically to steal your sensitive credential, to steal your sensitive data many a times, to steal your probably transaction details like credit card, debit card details, your username, email ID, or password, and similar stuff like that. Okay. So phishing is all about sending fake mails. That is phishing. Creating fake web pages, that is farming. Like you build a clone of facebook.com, that is going to be covered under farming. You receive a mail from, let's say, gmail.com, from Google probably, okay, and they are saying that, okay, we saw some unusual activity on your account, okay, and click on this link, open this link to secure your account. That can be a probable phishing email, okay. So there are certain characteristics of phishing emails. Certain characteristics are going to be like, first of all, you should look for the typing errors, okay, in the email, if there are any typos, okay. Second of all, there is going to be some kind of a sense of urgency that is going to be portrayed by the attacker. Let me see if I can show you some sample phishing mails. Hmm. Let me not you guys present first of all. Hmm. Okay, yeah. So here I have a sample email. What does it say? Trusted bank, dear valued customer, blah blah blah. Recently don't need to withdraw to verify your personal information. Okay. So there is a link that is mentioned in the email. Okay. So one thing that you guys must do before clicking on any link in an email is you should try to hover over that link. Okay. See what is the href link to that link. Okay. You understand that what is href in HTML,
Yes, sir.
right? That is where you are going to be redirected to. Okay. So when you hover on any link, you see something at the bottom left corner of your screen, bottom left. Hmm. So I got to know that a lot of you guys think that I'm teaching high level stuff. Some of you think I'm teaching low level stuff. Hmm. I'm not covering the basics. So let me just give you an example as well. Like here you can see I'm clicking on this. I'm hovering on this image. On the bottom left, you can see https://www.google.com// blah 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 blah. So what is that? What is that link that you see at the bottom left? Hmm?
That is the link you will be redirected if you click on that image.
On this image, right? So that is the link where I will be redirected. So if you guys have ever tried adding any link to your email, so you would have seen that it is possible for you to add any keyword to mask your link. Okay, I can just write abcd.com and I can create a hyperlink of it, which is going to be redirecting you to, let's say, facebook.com. Okay, but for the user, it is going to look like you are going to be redirected to abcd.com. You are trying to open abcd.com, right? This thing is clear.
Yes, sir.
This is something that you guys need to look uh, carefully while you receive any sensitive email. Another thing is that there is going to be some kind of a sense of urgency that is going to be portrayed. Like if I take another example, this account will be deleted in 14 days, so sign in now. Yeah, 14 days is sense of urgency. Uh, So here you can see it says failure to verify your account immediately might lead to the temporary suspension or restriction of your account, blah, blah, blah. So the point is that some kind of a sense of urgency is going to be built up. Like open this link within 1 day, or this link is going to expire within 1 day, within 6 hours or 24 hours. As you can see here, it says failure to verify your account immediately might lead to temporary suspension. So they are trying to create that urgency, okay, in the victim's mind, that you need to click on it, otherwise something wrong is going to happen. Okay. That is one thing. Other than that, you can try looking closely into the logos that are being used, that are being embedded in the email. Okay. A lot of times there are chances that uh, the logos are not the original one. Hmm, right. So attendance has been marked and you guys have already started leaving. Great. Hmm. Or else maybe there is some internet issue with that guy. Okay. So PayPal. Okay, PayPal is something for which we have got a lot of phishing email samples, a lot of farming pages. So, have any one of you ever received any phishing email?
A lot of times, sir.
Hmm?
A lot of times, sir. We almost receive such emails like on a daily basis or once in 3 or 4 days.
Right. Okay, so okay, something in private message, something in public. We have created one. We have created one. Great. Feedback and all that stuff. Yeah, I'll talk with that regard later on. So made a web page that looked like Starbucks Wi-Fi login page. Okay, great. So what kind of phishing emails do you receive? Okay, what is your experience, or how are you able to find out that okay, this is not a legitimate email? Hmm?
So these are the emails which usually have really catchy subject lines
Hmm.
and we usually feel that they're trying too hard to, get to us. And as you said, that they create a sense of emergency
Mm-hmm.
or they offer something really lucrative.
Mm-hmm.
So somewhere on these lines.
Right. So same characteristics you have also observed, right? These are certain characteristics, standard characteristics that you can find. So that is all about your phishing. Okay. Let's talk about farming. If I say farming, oops, the one giving, sir, once I received, okay, I have received some messages here. I once received a PayPal password reset email on an email account from which I have never created a PayPal account, right? The one giving almost unbelievable offers, and then as you open the page, 10 pop-ups, or they ask for credential as soon as you open the page, right? Right. Farming. Let's click on images here. Do we have any sample page here? One more guy left. Great. Uh, Online banking. Hmm. So the idea behind phishing and farming is basically to send these emails in bulk. Okay. Yeah, this is a good example. So that the possibility of people, the probability is very low in case of phishing and farming. Okay, it's like if you are sending 1,000 emails, okay, only 10% out of them are going to actually click on those links. Okay, like from 1,000 people, only 100 people are going to click on those links, and out of those 100, only 10 people are going to actually enter the credentials there. So that's why the idea behind it is to send emails in bulk. Okay, and many times as of well that you received a password reset link for the account that you have never created. Okay, so these phishing and farming attacks are not very user centric. Okay, they are not very target specific. Okay, that's why we have got something known as spear phishing. Okay, what happens in case of spear phishing is you decide a target, you you narrow down a target and it's a single target, and you deploy a phishing or farming campaign right around that target. Okay, it can be an individual, it can be a corporate organization, it can be a corporate engagement as well. So that depends upon scenario to scenario. But it's like if if you do not have a Maharashtra bank account and you are receiving a call from Maharashtra bank representative saying that your credit card has been blocked, so I don't think that anybody is going to fall prey to such kind of attack. Okay, but if I have done sufficient information gathering about my target, like you have a bank account in SBI and this is your social media profile, this is your website, this is your web page, this is your email ID. I have done sufficient information gathering. Okay, then I can create something that is very that is going to look very legit to you. Okay, so that is simply going to increase the probability or increase the chances for your target to click on it and actually enter the credentials. Okay, so that is known as spear phishing. When you go behind a specific individual, okay, targeting someone, not sending bulk emails. Okay.
Sir, can you please repeat the difference? Can you please just tell again the difference between farming and fishing?
Yeah, Shashwat, your voice is breaking in between.
Hello? Hello?
So you were saying, repeating the difference between
Farming and fishing.
spear phishing and fishing, normal fishing.
No, no, no. Farming and fishing.
Yeah, farming is all about creating fake web pages. Okay. Farming is all about when you create the, as you have mentioned, like creating clones of web pages, creating clone of facebook.com, clone of instagram.com, stuff like that. That is farming. Okay. Fake web pages is farming, fake emails is. Okay. So coming back here, what is whaling? Hmm? Can any one of you explain me what is whaling?
Targeting big guys which who have big money, or some guys who are highly uh, have good solid amount of money, so we can target them to get we also get some money.
Okay. Anyone else would like to try? So whaling is all about going behind the big fish. Okay, targeting the big fish. Okay, just like a whale, it's a very big fish. When you go for catching a big fish, you do not expect to catch 10 number of fish at once. Okay, you just expect to catch a single fish. So it is all about going behind the high level guys in an organization. For example, like CEO, CFO, the C-suite people are generally targeted. Okay, or you can say the directors. Okay, the high manage people who hold some high management post, people who hold some powers at their hand, like CFOs. Okay, so there is a very good category of CEO CFO scam. Maybe you guys are aware of it. Hmm. CEO email fraud. Have you guys heard about this? CEO CFO fake emails. Hmm?
No, sir.
Yeah, guys, can you hear me?
Yes, sir.
Okay, so let me repeat. I'm asking that have you guys ever heard about this kind of scams like CEO to CFO email scam? Hmm?
No, sir. No, sir.
Nope. Okay. And this is something that you guys should be aware of. It's like a lot of time this kind of scam happens that CFO is going to receive an email from CEO, and CEO is going to ask the CFO to make an online wire transaction, okay, on an urgent basis. Probably CEO is out of town, somewhere in some other part of the country, and he is not able to reach the CFO through call. So he's writing this email, and CFO thinks that that he's actually receiving the email from CEO, but that is not the case actually. Okay, and within a day or two, they realizes that okay, it was a fake email, and it was a legitimate wire transfer, and the money has been lost. Okay, to spoof company email, right? Company email is spoofed. Social engineering. Okay, we have got someone here. Okay. Yeah, here it is. An attacker will send an email to a victim inside a target message saying that funds need to be transferred immediately to an outside account. Okay, that's how it works. So most of the time, CFO receives an email from CEO. That is actually not from CEO. It's from a spoofed email. Okay. Similar thing is mentioned here as well. Receives an urgent email from Erica, the company CEO. Carl in accounting receives an urgent email. So this is just a basic case study. Okay, you guys can go through it. So that is an example of whaling, you can say. Okay, in this case, CFO is being targeted. Okay, a lot of information gathering and a lot of homework goes behind these kind of attacks. Okay. Okay.
So, sir, what do the corporates do in order to prevent this?
So there is no solution for human stupidity actually. Okay. The only preventive measure against social engineering is awareness. Okay. That is the only thing. Right. So what else do we have in social engineering? We have got.
Sir, actually, what I meant to ask was that, for example, our university uses the mail exchange st.nit university.
Yeah.
So, companies, corporates must also be using that, and I don't think it's possible to spoof an email which uses a specific mail exchange. So, like, do these steps help, or are they not useful?
No, it is possible to spoof that mail server as well. That is not the case. Like, how can you say that you have your own mail server? So it is not possible to spoof an email that is coming from your mail server. Hmm? Is it what you are asking?
Yes, yes.
So actually, what happens is nowadays Gmail in itself is very smart. Okay, if you host your own mail server, you try to spoof it. Most of the times, Gmail itself lands your email into the spam folder. But see, when you goes behind a large corporate where millions and billions of dollars are involved, okay, then there is no problem from the attacker side to just invest a little bucks from his side, okay, to create a genuine server to look like that it's coming from a genuine source. Okay, if you are going to make a fake, let's say, clone of a web page, okay, you are not going to buy a public IP address as an individual. You are not going to go for a SSL certificate integration. Okay, you would not be willing to invest any money as an individual. But if you know that, okay, I'm targeting this for a money, okay, and in return I'm going to receive thousands of dollars, so you will not be having any problem in buying a certificate, getting a public IP address, getting a legit looking domain name. Okay, so that depends upon the motivation of the attacker, that how far he can go for his target. Okay, have you guys heard about the IDN homographic attacks?
No,
Yeah.
sir.
No, sir.
No. So in case of IDN homographs, what actually happens is you try to buy a domain name that looks exactly the same. Okay, you try to buy a domain name that looks exactly the same in some kind of another character set, like Cyrillic characters, Greek characters, or you have multiple characters available here. Okay, so we have got a very good example for this, that is Apple IDN homograph. Do we have anything here?
Oh yes, there was a webinar in our university about this thing. The A thing in other something like just looks like A, right? In Apple.
Yeah, right.
Yes, sir. There was a webinar in our university about this.
Yeah. Proof of concept website. There's another. Is this the one? Yeah. So here in the browser, you can see it looks just like the original apple.com. Apple.com. That's the legit website. Okay. And if you see this one, this is exactly the same. So this is a example for ID and homograph. Okay. Actually, this is not apple.com. This is your Cyrillic characters. Okay. And I have a question in the chat. It says for the vishing attacks, some inside info must be right. Yeah, right. So first of all, what is vishing actually is essentially vishing is all about fake phone calls. Okay, it's all about voice solicitation. Okay, that you try to do a cold calling. Okay, you try to call another person, and you try to gain information about that person. You try to gain sensitive credentials probably. So there's a very good show that is known as Jamtara probably, if I'm not
Yes,
wrong.
sir. It's on Netflix, sir. It's
Yeah,
it's all based on wishing.
yeah, it's all based upon wishing, right? Jamtara. So
Jamtara, yeah.
yeah, so this is the one. uh,
हेलो सर, आपका ये कॉल आपके कार्ड से संबंधित किया जा रहा है। सर, बताना चाहूंगी कि आपके खाते को 50,000 की लॉटरी लगी है। सर, आपका एटीएम कार्ड एक्सपायरी होने
well, so we are not going to watch the whole trailer here, but just to give you an idea, right? You can go and look into this trailer by yourself. You can understand what wishing is all about. It's all about fake phone calls, and this is I believe this is based upon the reality. Actually, a lot of wishing scams was happening from this Jharkhand. Okay, maybe someday someone out of you have also received some kind of a fake call, like please confirm your account, your account is getting expired or stuff like that. uh, I personally have received some message from KBC claiming that I have won 25 lakh rupees out of nowhere. I have won 25 lakh rupees, and they want to verify certain details, and they were expecting me to send them 10,000 rupees as a income tax and all that stupid stuff. Okay, so once I'm going to send 10,000 rupees to them, then they are going to send 25 lakh rupees to me. Okay, so there are a variety of cyber crimes that actually keeps on happening around you. Okay, so I hope wishing is clear. Okay, it is all about fake phone calls, voice solicitation. Okay, nowadays you will see that there are dedicated startups, there are dedicated companies uh, which are not way too much technical in nature. They are providing security, focusing their motive all around the social engineering only. Okay, they hire social engineers only. And who can be a social engineer? A person who is having good people skills. Okay, what you can say, an extrovert. Okay, a person who can talk to anyone out of the blues, can initiate a conversation. Okay, so yeah, there was a video. Let me see if I can find it. Phishing.
To hack me with his team, but they're going to hack me using social engineering, which is essentially hacking without any code.
Well, let me just oops, control C. Let me just share this link in the chat. You guys can go through it. So there are dedicated organization focusing upon social engineering itself. Okay. Have you guys heard about that No Before, hmm, by Kevin Mitnick? No Before. Hmm?
Yes, sir.
Right. They offer very expensive training, very expensive products, very expensive tools for corporate engagements, just for this social engineering stuff. Okay. Fish your users and all that stuff. They've got their own proprietary SaaS. Okay. Well, coming back to my point, we have got tailgating over here.
Sir, you were telling us about ID and homography. So, sir, what was that name of Cyrillic characters you said, right?
Yeah, Cyrillic characters. I showed you on the Wikipedia as well, right? If I
Yes, yes.
right, that is it. So, what is tailgating? Hmm?
Following a person closely who has access to a building or a room, and we also get into that room.
Right. Following a person closely. Tailgating, not this one. I want to know about the social engineering one. Social engineering one. Yeah, this one. Okay. So actually, a lot of organization have these authentication mechanism at the entry levels. Huh? So like the guy in front swiped his card, okay, and the entry is going to be locked on that guy. But this guy who is following him have gained access to this facility, okay, without swiping his own card, right? He's going to deny this time. He's going to say swipe your own card and then come. Well, you get the idea, right? What is tailgating? That is tailgating. Okay, there is no technicality involved here. It is just simple people skill. Okay, it's like if somebody is trying to tailgate, so that person is going to behave in a way that he's pretty much preoccupied or pre-engaged. Okay, he cannot uh, swipe his card. He forgot his card. Okay, and stuff like that. Maybe he has got multiple boxes at metro station. Two people sometimes go under a single token. Right, that's a good example for tailgating. That is a very good example for tailgating. Okay, so that is tailgating. Then we have got, what do we have? Dumpster diving. Name suggests in itself. What is dumpster diving? Hmm? Going through the trash.
Yes, sir.
Okay. So many a times, sir, can you explain whaling once again? Yeah, whaling is all about targeting a big fish. Okay, going behind the people who hold very high position in an organization. Okay, in whaling, you generally target an individual, targeting individual, and that individual most of the times is going to be from someone from C-suite. Okay, like CEO, CFO, CISO, CTO, COO, stuff like that, or else someone like a director or a partner, mm, people like them who hold a lot of power in their hand. Okay, if these people are going to be compromised, a major data breach can happen, a major loss can be suffered by an organization. Okay, right? Yeah, yeah. So then comes a dumpster. So yeah, that depends from scenario to scenario. Okay, maybe let's say there is no insider who is involved. Maybe first of all, the attacker tried to compromise the insider first. Okay, once he was compromised, the attacker gained a lot of information from that small fish and then went behind targeting the big fish. That can also be a case, or else someone from inside can be involved all the way along. Okay, that can
So,
also be
sir,
a case.
can we say that spearfishing can be like a way of doing whaling? Like, for example, if you want to target a CFO,
Mhm,
and if you're not able to target him or gain information of him
mhm.
directly, so maybe you target one of their family members who is vulnerable or someone he
Yeah,
knows who can
right,
be, yeah,
right.
and then
That is
gain
right.
information upon them and then do the whaling.
Right, that is absolutely right, and it actually happens in a lot of cases. Okay, it's like the attacker was able to identify from the social media account that this person is married and he's having small children. Okay, and his kids are around about 10 to 14 age. Okay, the attacker can try to attack, then he can try to compromise the devices of those children first of all, and then try to make his way to the internal network and pivot pivot around the network. Okay, that can also be a case. Yeah, so spear phishing can act as a stepping stone for whaling, right? That was the essence. Okay, so coming back to dumpster diving. Yeah, so a lot of times what happens is um, you can find a lot of sensitive information going through the trash of a corporate. Okay, going through the trash of an organization. If the organization is not implementing the safe ways for disposing the sensitive documents, like using a shredder and all that stuff. Okay, so let's say if an organization is not using a shredder and is just discarding their sensitive documents like that only, maybe they are just cutting them in two halves. Okay, maybe they are just tearing it up and throwing it in the dustbin. The attacker can find a lot of sensitive information from there as well. Okay, that is dumpster diving.
What does it mean in digital terms? I mean, how can that this be done digitally?
How can this be referenced digitally? So
Yes, sir.
let's say there's an organization. Okay, this organization was having a lot of sensitive personal data of a lot of customers. Okay, that is of no more use to them. Okay, now let's say digitally there are multiple case scenarios. Okay, like they are discarding their hardware or they are discarding their old laptops, their old servers. Okay, without properly cleaning the hard drives, let's say. Okay, and if I am a sufficient, you retrieved pan cards using Google Docs. Yeah, that is an example, right? That is also an example. Other than that, I can buy those old machines from an organization. Okay, I can get it from the scrap as well if I know that where they are scrapping it, and I can try to retrieve data from there, from their hard drives, from their systems. That is an option. Right, let's go ahead. Then we have got shoulder surfing. Hmm. Yeah, you can say that destroying the hard drives is the best way, but still, I have read a lot about it in the forensics. Like the destroyed hard drives can also still be retrieved. Some kind of a data can be retrieved out of it. Okay, so dumpster diving. Okay, so dumpster diving is basically going through the when attacker is going to go through the trash of an organization. That is dumpster diving. Okay, just understand the word in itself. The attacker is going to take a dive into the dumpster. Dumpster is the trash. Okay, he's going to swim in the dumpster. Hmm, that is dumpster diving. Expecting that corporate has somehow disposed of some sensitive information in a casual way. Maybe the attacker can find something good there. That is dumpster diving. I don't know if I have ever seen any good video with respect to dumpster diving. Let me see. Dumpster diving. Someone dumped this amazing stuff on the curb. Maybe found iPhones and Samsung S20 dumpster diving. Oh, that's probably false. I don't believe this video. Somebody dumped their amazing furniture. Okay, people do all kind of stuff, huh? Nothing of our relevance here. But the point remains the same. Okay. Once we microwave a hard drive, is it still recoverable? In my opinion, I don't think so. Okay, you drill the hard drive first of all. Okay, you break it in small pieces, you microwave it. I don't think that it is still in some kind of a recoverable state. Okay, yeah, Mr. Robot, right? It is shown in Mr. Robot. But still, you will find some article lying here and there who are going to say that, yeah, it is still recoverable. We can recover it. Okay, but I don't know how many forensic experts are competent enough actually in reality to recover a hard drive. Let's not talk about microwave. Even if that hard drive is drilled once, okay, I don't know if people would be able to recover it practically or not. Okay, so okay, coming back to my point, shoulder surfing. So yeah, what is shoulder surfing? What do you understand by shoulder surfing, huh? Simply try to explain this word. Shoulder plus surfing is shoulder surfing. Hmm? Like you can give an example as standing next to the target and looking into what he is typing. Absolutely right. Okay. Like looking behind someone's back. Okay. Like you are traveling in metro. hmm, You are standing, somebody is sitting. That's an example. Or you are standing, somebody is standing in front of you, and he's trying to log in on his phone in his Facebook. Okay. And what you do is you try to read what he is typing. You can very well read the password and the email address. Okay, you can get the credentials. Maybe he's trying to do an online transaction that you can capture that way. Okay. So that is shoulder surfing. That's why only one person is allowed in the ATM, right? Why is only 1% allowed in the ATM? So that a person who is making the transaction, the person who is standing behind, is not able to see the pin. Okay. That's why a clear instructions are provided, like hide the pin. Okay. Put a hand over it and all that stuff. That is shoulder surfing essentially. Okay. Looking through someone's wallet, phones, etc. when the person is searching for something or is maybe making a payment. Right. That is also an option. Right. The essential concept here is like you are trying to look into, trying to take a sneak peek into something while you are in the near vicinity. Okay. Either from the behind or from the front. Okay. That is essentially the shoulder surfing. So that was all about social engineering. Okay. Let me recall if something is left. Yeah, one is water holing. Hmm? If I'm not wrong, water hole attack. Huh? Yeah, water holing. So what happens here is it is basically derived from this traditional term. Like if you got to know that okay, your victim or your target is regularly visiting some place, so what you can do is you can try to infect that place so that at a later point of time the victim is going to visit that place or visit that website, the victim is going to be infected. It's like I got to know that you keep on visiting this let's say this website called xyz.com. Okay. So what I can do is I can try to find a vulnerability in xyz.com. Okay. Maybe some cross-site scripting vulnerability. Okay. I can input a malicious payload there, and I'm just going to sit back and wait for you to visit that website. Once you visit that website, maybe your cookies are being fetched, your cookies are being copied and being sent to me, and I have your credentials, I have got your session and all that stuff. That is water holing attack.
So, sir,
Yeah.
so you're saying that whilst I am browsing through a website, a person can get hold of my session ID and all that.
Yeah.
Sir, but isn't the session saved on the server side? The server side, I mean, either the server sends it directly to my computer, right? So
Yeah.
how
That is actually
that
possible.
works?
So essentially, there is a session ID that is generated once you go through. Once you are done with the authentication process, once you enter the credentials, a session ID is generated. A copy of that session ID is kept safe on the server, and a copy of that session ID is sent to the client in the cookies. Okay, cookies basically hold. What are cookies? What is a cookie? Can any one of you explain me what is a cookie?
It stores some kind of data on client's machine, some just session IDs or something like that.
Yeah, so you were telling me about cookies, right? What is cookie? Cookies are like, you can say, very small files, very small text files. They are like key value pairs. They hold some values, hold some keys. For all those people who have done Python, probably I can give you this example from Python. There's a concept of dictionaries there, right? What are dictionaries? They are like key value pairs, right? So similarly, there are your cookies. They hold certain user preferences or user settings. Now, if I'm going to go more deep into it, then you guys are going to say that I get diverted from social engineering to cookies, huh? So
No,
in
sir.
there,
Actually, if you want to get into cookies, please do, because cookies are really important to us in general too. I mean,
okay, so I must be having some plugin over here. I do not have it. Let me just install it. Cookie editor. Or let me just do one thing. Let me just open my Kali machine over here. Let me tell you something about session management bugs, session ID,
sir,
cookies.
there is a extension which comes in Firefox known as Grease Monkey. That is,
Okay.
I think, yeah.
Let's just wait for a minute and I'll show you a very good session management bug, or what is session hijacking, you can say. What is session ID, what is cookie. I'll cover it. Although I don't think that this is actually the part of your curriculum.
Sir, I just want to clarify one thing, that waterholing can only be done if the website requires us to do some kind of authentication by entering some credentials, or it be done in any kind of website?
It can be done otherwise as well. That is not a mandatory prerequisite for it. Okay. It can be done otherwise as well. Let's open my browser. Let's go to facebook.com. Let's go to facebook.com. I'm already logged in. Great. I'm already logged in here. So I have installed this extension called Cookie Editor. For those who do not know what is Cookie Editor, what I'm talking about, it's an extension that everyone can install from here. Cookie Editor, Firefox. Let's go here. Click on the first link. And this is the icon that you should be look out for. Click on Add to Firefox. Okay. Allow this extension to work in incognito mode as well. Okay. Okay. So this is the icon that is going to start appearing once you have installed this extension. Okay. Let me just close this thing. So whenever you visit a website, okay, let's just say HackerOne. I went to this HackerOne website. Okay. Somebody got disconnected. Okay. Yeah. So here you can say a lot of cookies are here. Okay. These are essentially your key value pairs. Okay, if I go to my Facebook, okay, if I click on this, you can see these are your key value pairs. This is your cookie value. Okay, this is the key, this is the value, this is the key, this is the value. Okay, essentially what cookies does is cookies are going to store small user preferences settings. Like if I need to give you an example, like you are visiting a website and for the first time when you visit that website, it loads in Russian language. Okay, and what you do is you change that language to English. Now next time, some other day, when you try to visit the same website, by by default it is going to open in the English language. Now automatically it is going to open in English language. Why is this happening, or how is this happening? Hmm? You got the illustration right? What is my illustration here?
So because the data is storing in a format like in the form of cookie.
Okay, it is because it was the language preference of the user. Okay, and that language preference got stored in the cookies. Okay, for example, if I need to give you an example here, let me see if I have any language here. Like here you can see, okay, it this is your language preference here. Okay, so these names that are assigned to these parameters, these values, that depends upon the developer. Okay. So coming back to my point, like when you are going to visit the website for the first time, okay, there are going to be no cookies. Okay, when the server is going to receive a response from the user, the server is going to look into the header, the HTTP header of the request, and it is going to see that, okay, do we have any cookies here or not? There are no cookies. So in that case scenario, the server is going to reply with a set cookie value. Okay, the server is going to reply with set cookies, and it is going to set certain values inside those cookies. These cookies are very small text files, key value pairs, which are stored locally on the client side. Okay, they can be stored in your browser, or they can be stored in your local storage as well. Okay,
Sir, exactly what are the contents of a cookie? If we talk in terms of authentication websites.
yeah, so in case of authentication, there is a session ID that is created. So what happens is you visited a website, okay, and you entered the credentials and you sent it to the server. The server authenticated those credentials, okay, that it's true, and the credentials matches the server, and you are allowed access. Okay, so what server is going to do is server is going to create a session ID. Okay, the session ID needs to be sufficiently random. Okay, it is going to be a randomly generated sufficiently long and complex string. Okay, if I need to give you an example here, this is your session ID here. You can see the value here. This is sufficiently long and complex. Okay, you can see it here, right? Let me just copy it, show it to you in the browser. This is your session ID over here. So this session ID is going to be unique to that user. Once the authentication is happened, session ID is created. This value is a copy of this value saved on the server side, and another copy is saved in the cookies. Okay, a lot of people think that user credentials are saved in the cookies, but that is not the case. Never ever say this thing. User credentials are never saved in the cookies. Okay, I don't believe that there is going to be any developer who is dumb enough to save credentials in the cookies. Instead, what happens is this session ID is going to be saved in the cookies. Now, what is going to happen is when at a later point of time, you are going to visit the same website, let's say facebook.com. You saw that when I opened this browser, I just opened this facebook.com. I was not asked to enter any credentials here. I did not logged in front of you, right? So what happened exactly? What happened exactly is I was having these cookies already saved in my browser. When I tried to open facebook.com, the request from my client to the browser to the server. Okay. In that request, my session ID was also sent through the cookies. When the server received that session ID, server saw that okay, I already have an active connection to which I have assigned this session ID. So that's why the server returned me with this logged in page. That is the reason. Okay.
So,
Getting
sir, when the client sends a session ID while logging in, and the server has already saved a session ID, so how does it confirm that they? I mean, those session ID must not be the same, right? So
those session
how do they match?
IDs are going to be same. If those session IDs are
Okay.
same, then only the server is going to allow you to log in, because there is a copy of this session ID that was created and saved on the server side as well. Okay. And it was uniquely assigned to whom? To me, like to this account, John English. Okay. To this user, a session ID was assigned. So it's like you can also log in using my session ID. Let me show you how. Let me just open a private window here. Okay. And what I'm going to do here is, let me just go to facebook.com. I'm not logged in here. Less cookies here. Let's get back to my active session here. Nope. Get the copy of C user. Copy. Come here, add, paste the value C underscore user. Save it and get the session ID as well, like access. Copy this, go to my incognito, paste it here, just press access here, save it, and just click on refresh. Okay. So you can see here, I did not enter any credentials here. Did I?
No, sir.
What exactly happened? How was I able to log in without entering the credentials? So my question is, how was I able to log in here without entering the credentials?
Using the session ID, obviously.
Through that session ID, because that session ID was still valid on the server side. Okay. So any one of you is going to copy, if you find this session ID, okay, you just paste it in your cookies, paste it in your browser, and send it to server. Okay. It's like you can say you have got a ticket, you've got an entry pass, you can say. Okay. And there is no name written on it. You can consider it that way as well. So when I added these session ID over here, okay, so when this request was sent to the server saw the cookies. Inside those cookies, the server saw that there is a session ID. Okay. Server went back to in itself and server looked into the database. Okay, I have already assigned this session ID to whom? To this user. Okay. So I need to give back this user his own session. Okay. So that's why server replied me with a logged in session here. Okay. This is your session ID essentially.
And sir, one more thing, you entered two kind of values when you copied two values. So what were those two values exactly?
So exactly, we do not know. Okay, the access value was never named as a session ID. Okay, I do not know what is session ID here. That is just by a mere hit and trial and experience, I would say. Okay, because I know that this can be a possible session ID. So most of the times, what developer is going to do is developer is going to rename these values with something which is only known by the developer or which is only known by the internal team. So these are those values essentially. If I need to give you the answer, the combination of these two values uniquely identifies a user. Okay, these are those two values. Right?
Okay, sir.
Yeah. Like if you do not know what these values are, what you can do is just open a new private window here. Let's say facebook.com. It's clean. Just go here, click on export and go to your incognito. Click on import, paste it, click on import, do a refresh here. So what I did here is I simply copied everything from this cookies and pasted everything here and just clicked on refresh. Okay. So for those people who were asking me to show a little bit about bug bounty as well, okay, it's a valid session management bug. How can you test for a session management bug? Okay, what you can do at this point is you can try logging out from this account. Okay, just log out from here. Okay, it's incognito here. Okay, let me just see if I'm able to import, log in here again. Nope. So what you need to check is just log out from here as well. I already have those uh, session ID copied in my clipboard. Facebook.com. Open it here. Go back to my incognito. Close this thing. Again open facebook.com. Try pasting it here. Import, paste, save, and click on refresh. See if you are able to log in here. So you can see that here now I'm not able to log in with this same session ID. So what happened here? What exactly happened here? Why was I able to log in initially at an earlier stage, but now I'm not able to log in? What
The
changed?
session expired.
Right, you intentionally expired the session. Okay. So how can you test for these bugs? Actually, if you are able to use the old session ID to log in to that account, if still that session ID is not being expired even after you have logged out, then that's a valid session management bug. Okay. You can report that at any bug bounty platform. Okay. Either you are going to get a Hall of Fame or some money as well in return. That's how you can test for session management bugs. That is not the only case. It's like if you want to test for session management bug, you can start analyzing the session ID. Like here, what you can do is you can try logging in multiple times. Okay, start copying this session ID and start placing them one under the another in a notepad. Okay, and start analyzing any similarities in this session ID. See if you can derive any pattern out of them. See if you are able to guess another session ID. Okay, if the session ID is not sufficiently long, it is not sufficiently random. Okay, the algorithm is not working efficiently, and you are able to guess the value of someone else's session ID, then also it's a valid session management bug. Okay, see if you can change something out of this and paste it in your cookie editor, and you are able to log into somebody else's account. Okay, that is also valid session management bug. Right. Able to understand? कुछ समझ में आया या
Yes, sir.
अब ऊपर से
Yes,
चलेगा?
sir.
Hmm. So, okay. So there was actually this bug. This bug was actually there in Twitter. Okay. In Twitter, What they were doing was, even after you were logging out, okay, they were not changing the session ID. Like I logged out, the session ID was same. I logged in again, the same session ID was assigned back to me. Okay, I logged out again, I logged in again, the same session ID was assigned to me back. Okay, now that session ID was actually active and it was valid for infinite amount of time. Okay, it's like once I get hold of your session ID, I have access to your account for infinite amount of time. And I do not need to know the credentials, no OTP, nothing. Okay, the only time that session ID used to expire was when the user uh, changed his password. Okay, only after changing the password, the session ID was used to expire. Don't worry, this is not valid nowadays. Okay, I'm talking about the initial days of Twitter. This actually happened. Okay, so we talked about social engineering, we talked about session management bugs. Okay, what is session, what is session management, a little bit about cookie, a little bit about session ID. Okay, so I hope now you guys understand what is session ID. It is just a sufficiently long and random string that is assigned to a user, and it uniquely identifies a user. Okay, a copy of it is saved on the server, a copy of it saved on the client side, and it is matched every time a request is made from the client. I hope this thing is clear. If you guys have any doubt, you can ask me now.
Sir,
Yeah.
sir, is there any way to get the session ID if we are not on that device?
Remotely.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, there are a lot of ways. Like you can use rubber ducky. That is one option. Another option is through cross-site scripting. Okay,
So
you can do reflective.
MITM.
Yeah, MITM, but MITM you need to be in the same network for that.
So
MI
how can we use XSS to get a session ID? I mean,
How to use XSS for getting the session ID? You can get the XSS payload for for stealing cookies. Okay, how to write an XSS cookie stealer in JS. It's a very small code, one line, two line of code, but you need to have a server as well running, because once those cookies are copied, they are going to be sent to you at some kind of an address. For that, you need to have a server running as well. Okay. So let me show you where is the cookie stealer code. Here it is. Okay. So document.cookie is basically the function which is used to read the values of cookies. Okay. This is the our script should look now this document.write. It is creating something, creating certain values. It should look like something. Okay. Stealing cookies. Yeah. This is how you steal it. Okay, this IP address is going to be your public IP address. Let me show you. What is IDOR? Now you want to learn IDOR, you want to learn cross-site scripting, session management. IDOR is your insecure direct object reference. Okay, so what happens in case of IDOR is, and now see, I'm not going to show you practicals for everything. Okay. I can't help. Okay, I can't help. Yeah, everything is entry level bug, bro. Everything is entry level. SQL injection is also entry level. Cross-site scripting is also entry level. Okay, but that is not covered in your security plus training. The session management demonstration was also not covered actually. Okay, I could have only briefed you about what is session ID, and this is session ID. It is random. It is random. Use this plugin and do that. Do blah blah blah. Well, coming back to my point, I don't want to get diverted. So yeah, here I was explaining you this script. So this IP address is going to be your public IP address where you have hosted your PHP script. This is the PHP script that you have written there. Okay. This is the variable that you have created. And here you are trying to append the value from document.cookie. Document.cookie is going to, this is the function, JavaScript function that is used to access the cookie. Okay. So that's how it works. Annotate, clear the screen. Yeah, you can read more about it on this article. That is actually the impact of cross-site scripting. That's why it is a serious bug.
So, sir, how do the people who do water holing
Yeah.
get access to our session IDs and cookies?
So that is conditional, right? So it's like you keep on visiting a specific website, abcd.com, and that website is, let's say, vulnerable to some arbitrary file upload, or so I just gave you an example of that the attacker can get the user session ID. Okay, that is not going to be the case every time. Okay, every time the attacker is not going to try to get the session ID. Sometimes the attacker is going to try to infect the target with a malware. Okay, sometimes the target is going to uh, get the credentials. Sometimes it is going to just do a CSRF. Okay, that depends that the water holding the target, the abcd.com that you are visiting, what kind of vulnerability exists there. Okay, if there's a CSRF there, check out Stoker. हाँ यही बोला, एंट्री लेवल है तो प्लीज करवा दीजिए, ये नहीं कि इजी है तो मत सिखाओ. आई एम नॉट सेइंग दिस कि इजी है तो मत सिखाओ. बाय द वे चेक आउट इनसाइडर, PhD, Stoke, Nahamsek. Yeah, these are some good YouTube channels that you guys can explore. Okay, so yeah, I was telling you that during the water holing attack, that is very conditional. That is very, dependent upon the scenario to scenario basis. Like what kind of vulnerability actually exists on the website that you are targeting. You cannot create a vulnerability by yourself, right? If there is no cross-site scripting there, then how would you be able to get a session ID? Then that would not be possible, right? If there is a CSRF vulnerability, then I'll try to exploit the CSRF vulnerability. Okay.
Sir, I'm sorry, that wasn't for you, actually. Hello.
Yeah.
So that wasn't for you, those chats. As in, I was chatting to someone else.
Great. Great.
Hello.
Yeah.
Sir, I'm really sorry if that was offending.
Not an issue. See, guys, you are a group of 25 students, I believe. Okay. It is very difficult for me to satisfy each and every one of you. Okay. Somebody is going to say that I want to do some practical on this tool. Somebody is going to say cover this tool, explain me this thing, explain me that thing. Okay. So that would be difficult for me to satisfy each and every one of you. But still, what I'm trying is I'm trying to take care of almost all of your needs, but I cannot take care of 100% of the needs. Okay, I have got
Yeah, yes, sir. What we are trying to say is that the concept which revolve around the concepts that are in this course, we just want to clarify those concepts as we move along, so that
yeah,
if in the interview phase we are asked something, because
yeah.
if an interviewer asks us what is water holding, and if we tell them that session ID can be exposed, follow-up questions can be arise from that. So that is why we are asking such.
Right, I understand. Okay, so I hope you guys learned something new today, at least. Uh, yeah, not an issue, Param. Relax. Okay, I'm not that khadus teacher, and this is not your college. Relax. See, in your security plus syllabus, we have got something like physical security measures topic as well, like explain the significance of security guards, cameras, and all that stuff, gates. I don't think that those things are required to be completed or covered from my side. Let me just show you. Uh, do we have anything like that here? Yeah, here we have explain the importance of physical security controls like signs, lightning, fencing, alarm, security guards. Okay, Faraday cage, lock tabs, biometrics, barricades. Okay, token guards, infrared detection, and all that stuff. So I expect you guys to start studying by yourself as well. Okay, that is only going to start supplementing your learning. Okay. So we covered the social engineering, we covered the threats, the different types of malwares and that stuff, types of attackers, actors, script kiddie, hacktivists, and that stuff. uh, Active reconnaissance, black box, white box, gray box. So, okay, I'll cover this topic in next session. Okay, giving you a heads up what is going to be covered. Yesterday I saw lock picking from DEFCON. Yeah, actually this happens. Okay, when you go for a red teaming engagement, everything is allowed in red teaming engagement. Okay, you are allowed to do a lock pick. You are allowed to just break in a window and just gain access to the facility. Nothing is out of scope. Only the things are in scope and out of scope in the bug bounty programs only, not in the red team engagements. But I will not try to cover lockpick in the curriculum. Okay, it is like uh, you guys are mature enough to understand what is lockpicking. Yeah, right. Yeah, I understand. I'm just saying. So giving you a heads up, I'll try to cover these topics in the next session, explain penetration testing concept, active recon, passive recon, pivot, initial exploitation, persistence, escalation of privilege, black box, white box. Yeah, I have an idea about Synac Red Team. Yeah, white box, gray box. I have my colleagues working there as well, and how to join. They take, it's a closed group, right? You need to have a reference to get inside. Black box, white box, gray box, pen testing versus VA. Okay, that's I'm going to cover that. And after that, what will I cover? Hmm, protocol analyzer. So we'll talk about sniffing as well. Okay, we'll talk about sniffing in the next session, and we'll talk about these. This 1.4 explaining penetration testing concept. Okay, giving you a heads up. So that's all. Let me join lid. Okay. Marked you guys present at the time of entry, at the time of exit.
Sir, could you please share the document of syllabus for security plus examination?
Did you try doing a Google search for that? Hmm?
Oh, is it available?
Everything is available. Everything is available on the Google. But still, I'm not going to deny it. I'm going to share it in the chat. You can get it here. Okay. But what I expect you guys is from you guys is at least do not ask me something that can be very easily Googled. Okay. So I have shared the PDF in the chat itself. Oh, oops, I did not share it in the chat. Let me share it in the chat again. I accidentally sent it to a private message. Yeah, now I have shared it in the chat. Everyone can get this. Try to go through whatever concepts you can by yourself. Okay, come up with a lot of doubts. I would be more than happy to solve your doubts. And that's all. That's all. And one more question.